Hello, and welcome to the November 2001 Cabinet meeting of the London Borough of Hammersmith and Fulham. My name is Stephen Cowan. I'm the leader of the borough, and I'd like to introduce the team. But before I do that, let me explain that in order to follow the best practice safety model and to minimize the risk of COVID infection, that we have had invited a minimum number of the cabinet to come into this meeting. And so they will introduce themselves shortly. And other members of the cabinet are zooming in on Teams. And the reason for that is not only throughout the pandemic, we have sought to take every measure and to set a lead to keep people safe. And that means taking a variety of different schemes right from the beginning. We were the first council in the country to move to an emergency footing. We were the first council to tell people to wear masks, which we did in May. The government did it in September. We pioneered a test and trace system, and indeed many other things. And the reason that we have taken that view of following the best scientific advice and acting on it without fear or favor is because we have been concerned oft at times that the government was too slow to intervene in this crisis. And whilst there has been great success with the vaccine, I think it is fair to say that many of the lives lost deserve to, that issue deserves to be examined in an independent public inquiry as quickly as possible. As we speak, we see rapid increases in the rate of COVID infection, and we see people packing into the intensive care units. It is of note that the people in the intensive care units are nearly always 100%, and mostly, and if not 100%, 99% people who have not had the vaccine. So we would encourage everybody to take the vaccine, not just because it protects them, it protects their loved ones, and on a wider scale, it also protects our economy and allows us to go about our business, something we're all determined that we get right as quickly as possible. So this, as you see with the cabinet meeting, is very much within that ethos that we apply of safety first in order that we get things right. Okay, well, let me begin just introducing the cabinet we have in the room, which is the quorum to make this a legal meeting. And on my right,
good evening, I'm Councillor Adam Connell, Cabinet Member for Public Services Reform.
And then on my far left.
Good evening, I'm Councillor Lisa Homan, Cabinet Member for Housing.
On my left.
Good evening, I'm Max Schmid, Cabinet Member for Finance.
Okay, thank you very much. Good evening, colleagues. We also have tuning in a variety of cabinet members. I think we'll try and do it in alphabetical order. So can we ask Ben Coleman? Good evening.
Hi, I'm Ben Coleman. I'm the Cabinet Member for Health and Adult Social Care.
I think it's Sue Fenimore, Deputy Leader of the Council. Good evening.
Good evening.
Okay, Larry Culhane, are you there?
Yes, I'm leader, just having some connection issues. Good evening, everyone. I'm the Cabinet Member for Children and Education.
Hello. Wesley Harcourt, good evening.
Hello, good evening, Wesley Harcourt. I'm Cabinet Member for the Environment.
I believe we have apologies from Councillor Andrew Jones and apologies possibly for lateness from Councillor Sharon Holder. And I would like to welcome Councillor Bora Kwan, the new Chief Whip, after the sad death of Colin Ahern, who is also attending in an ex officio fashion. So good evening, everybody. If you're okay with that, I'll move on to the first item of the agenda, which is minutes of the Cabinet meeting held on the 11th of October 2021. Is there any issues arising from those minutes? Can I ask then, therefore, are those minutes agreed? Agreed. Okay, thank you very much. I've covered apologies of absence already. Declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest? Therefore, please let the record there are none. I therefore move to item number 4, the 21-22 corporate revenue monitor for the month 4, and that is the report of the Cabinet Member for Finance, Max Schmidt. Over to you.
Thank you, Leader. This report shows a slight improvement on the month 2 report, which came to the Cabinet 2 months ago. The underspend that we are projecting for the end of the year has gone up slightly to £2.26 million. As I said 2 months ago, the fact that we're projecting an underspend is in the midst of a pandemic, when the council has a huge range of costs, some of which are not being met by the government, and in the midst of continued government austerity, is truly astounding. So I'd like to echo the congratulations I gave 2 months ago to all the council officers who've continued to battle through the pandemic to deliver high quality public services while also maintaining ruthless financial efficiency. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Are there any questions to the Cabinet Member for Finance? No? Well, I would just like to set on record, and we often talk in terms like austerity, and people say, that they're very familiar with the word. But the question is, what does that mean? And in real terms, what that means is in 2010, the London Borough of Hammersmith and Fulham had a budget of 184 million. And most of that money goes on social care. It's one of the hidden areas that people don't really see from a council unless they need to see it. And that is children at risk, or it is elderly or disabled people who need support. So we spend tens of millions of pounds caring for people as you would in a civilized society. But that 184 million pound has been reduced to this year to 124 million pound. So we've lost about a third of our budget. And I'm therefore extremely grateful to the senior management team that not only have they produced consistently balanced budgets and manage the authorities' money, i.e. the public's money, with ruthless financial efficiency, but also that we're bucking the trend. And so what you see is new law enforcement officers who are hitting the street this week. There's 72 of those. A new gangs unit to go after people who are enslaving our children and putting them at risk. You see free adult social care. You see free breakfast for all primary school children and many other services. It's very easy to take that for granted, but we've done it by stripping out record amounts of wastefulness. We believed we inherited an old-fashioned bureaucracy, and we came with a philosophy of turning Hammersmith and Fulham into a cutting-edge modern business, and that means looking at everything and stopping spending that wasn't producing outcomes. And therefore, we've saved £118 million, which is a record for this borough. No other administration of any political colour has ever saved as much. So I'm very, very grateful to the senior leadership team for doing that, because the services that we're now paying for, which are good services, I think are second to none, and our residents deserve the very best services at the very best value for money. So I would like to put on record the sincere thanks of me, not just to the finance team, but to everyone in the senior leadership team who's locking down, questioning spend, and making sure that it's spent on outcomes that produce results. Thank you very much. On that basis, can I therefore ask Councillor Connell, do you agree that to vote for this this paper?
Agreed.
Councillor Homan?
Agreed.
Presumably Councillor Schmidt?
Agreed, yes.
In that case, I also vote for this paper. It is agreed. I move on to item number 5, which is the digital strategy moving to a modern cloud-based service. Councillor Schmidt, over to you again.
Thank you, Leader. Following on from the last paper, as financial uncertainty that we face in the coming years continues, officers are continuing to look for new ways to save money. And this is an example of that. This is a transformation that will save us money as a council each year, but also it will have other benefits. It will support the new hybrid working model that we're going to pursue post-pandemic, giving officers the flexibility to work at home, in council offices, and most importantly, in the community. It's good for the environment, as it's like moving to a cloud-based system, which is far more energy efficient than the current servers that the council uses. And it's more resilient against cyber attack. So this is a safer, greener, and cheaper and better way of storing our data and supporting our IT systems. So for that reason, I recommend this paper, but I'd be happy to answer any questions.
On that note then, any questions from you, Councillor Connell? Councillor Homan? No. Well, I would just say thank you very much for the work on that. It is exactly, I think it fits with the former comments that both of us made about modernising this old-fashioned bureaucracy and turning it into a cutting-edge organisation. This is exactly where we need to be. So I agree with that point. Do you concur, Councillor Connell?
Absolutely. Thank you. Yep.
Councillor Homan?
Agreed, thanks.
Councillor Schmidt, presumably so, in which case that is also agreed. Item number 6 is forward plan of key decisions. So I'd ask everybody in the Cabinet to note those. And then I think that brings us to the very end. I would just like to finish on one note about the climate crisis that all of us experience. There is a huge meeting in Glasgow at the moment, and with COP26, and world leaders are sitting in that city working out what we do to stop the overheating of the planet and the dreadful calamities that will befall people across the planet, including in the borough, if we don't act properly. I was reminded this year that in Death Valley, California, the world, we recorded the highest ever temperature of 52 degrees centigrade. And 3 days later in Hammersmith, we were hit with record floods that caused tens of thousands of pounds worth of damage to households across the borough. And indeed, a day and a half after that, we saw many lives lost amongst our fellow European neighbours as floods hit the Rhine Valley and elsewhere. This calamity that we face is the biggest that any generation will face. It's equivalent to a world war in the level of coming together and action that is required to defeat this problem. And all I would say is that I know for sure that the people of Hammersmith and Fulham send a very strong message in urging for the politicians of COP26 to act. In Hammersmith and Fulham, we have declared that we want to be climate neutral for the whole borough by 2030. There is a lot we're doing on that front. I'm extremely grateful to the Climate and Ecological Emergency Commission of Residents who gave us many ideas. I'm extremely grateful to the Climate Emergency Unit, where we've got some of the best, brightest people working across the council to join up everything the council and the borough does to cut our carbon emissions. And indeed, we now have the Climate Emergency Commissioners led by Helen Dell, another resident, on how we pull together an alliance for change in Hammersmith and Fulham. So I would just finish on the note that every single chance we get, we need to inspire people to act, to protect, to limit their carbon emissions, to protect our planet, to make sure that we bequeath something to our children that we can be proud of rather than ashamed of. And that's really the mission. So thank you to everybody who took part in the Climate Carnival last week. It was a great success, hundreds and hundreds of people engaged, and this is going to be an ongoing story as we build up to the 2030 deadline. That brings us to the end of the Cabinet meeting. Thank you for tuning in, and I look forward to seeing you next month. Good night.